Om Makratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Om Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam अस्मद्गुरुभ्यो नमः श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ओम श्री मेधा दक्षिणामूर्ति स्वामिने नमः। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरिः ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम। ओम पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्धदामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्र रुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्ख्यपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसां पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। So, namaste once again, everyone. Chanchalam himana Krishna pramati balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. So, we are discussing the obstacles to meditation and also remedies for tackling the obstacles. And in these verses, the verse 33 which we have seen and 34, this verse, Arjuna is highlighting one serious obstacles. Even though we saw that there could be 4 types of obstacles, here Arjuna is highlighting one serious obstacle which is a very common obstacle faced by many people at the initial stages. And here he highlights 4 qualities of the mind which are natural. And these qualities actually are obstacles in meditation. The first is that the mind is chanchalam, highly active, fickle, wandering. And because of the wandering nature of the mind, one is not able to focus the mind in a particular field. And for meditation, one needs to focus the mind, by which I am supposed to dwell upon Vedantic teaching. But the mind does not have the focusing capacity. Therefore, it wanders all over. And even if I try to handle my mind, I find that it's a very slimy thing. It is like trying to catch a fish. How it will slip away. The mind is such an instrument. So I am not able to discipline, manage, or control the mind. And this nature of the mind is called vikshepaha, chanchalatvam. the waywardness of the mind. And here Arjuna is indicating that he has got sufficient mental steadiness to receive Krishna's teaching. While the teaching is going on, he is able to focus and gain the teaching. There he says, I don't have a problem. Even I understand what you are teaching, Krishna. So with regard to understanding Vedanta also, he does not have a problem. He is not that bad. He is not a Adhama Adhikari. We saw Adhama, Madhyama and Uttama Adhikari. Arjuna says, I am a Madhyama Adhikari, intermediate stage. I am able to receive, but I am not able to retain the teaching in the mind. And as long as I do not practice this meditation, I will have jnanam all right, but jnana nishta would not be there. And as long as jnana nishta is not there, there would not be transformation in my personality. And therefore, I very well understand that meditation is a must for me, but I am not able to practice that. What should I do, O Krishna? And therefore, in desperation, Arjuna cries in front of the Lord in this 34th verse, and which we were seeing in the last class. He says, Hey Krishna, manah chanchalam. The mind is highly fluid, extrovert. It is wayward, always wandering, outgoing. That is also okay, but it does not go out as I want. It goes as it decides. Highly fluid, chanchalam. And not only chanchalam, but its nature is pramathi. We saw the word pramathi means churning. It not only churns the vachikam, the vakindriyam, it also turns on the other indriyams also. When the mind is wandering, you will find the eyes are also wandering. When I do not have concentration in the mind, the eyes also go here and there, they wander. And that is another indication. In fact, teachers in the classroom, in schools and all, colleges and all, they catch inattentive students with this indication only. They will not be focusing on the teacher's face or on the board or anything. Their eyes will be wandering, so they will immediately catch hold. So if I have got concentration, I can fix the eye on a particular person. And this we have observed also, even during a conversation. You can find that some people cannot look at you and converse continuously. They will be looking here and there. Their eyes will be rolling. And that may prompt you to also ask them, are you listening to me? Because that's an indication that whatever you are telling them is not going inside. And also the limbs, the legs. When people are restless, what they do? They will walk up and down. Because they have a problem and they want to think of a solution. But they will not sit down and think. They will walk up and down as if that motion will give them the inspiration to come up with some good idea. So when the mind is highly active, the body also becomes active. And we saw the example of that in the very first chapter, isn't it? When Arjuna was extremely disturbed, emotionally disturbed, it overflowed into the Indriya body level also. He says, I am sweating, Krishna. My body is shaking and all that, right? So Pramathi. And he says further, it is Bhagavat. Bhagavat means strong, very strong. I thought that my mind is my instrument, and therefore I am the master of the mind because it is called antakaranam. Karanam means instrument. An instrument must be controlled by the possessor, the master. And therefore, I thought I am the master. But when I try to discipline the mind, only then I come to know that I am not the master, but I am an helpless servant. The mind rules over me. It dictates what I should do, what I should not do. And therefore, it is balavat. Intellect is supposed to be stronger than the mind. Even if the intellect tells the mind, do not do this, the mind says, you mind your own business. I will do what I want to do. And that's why, many people who are addicted to like smoking, drinking, and all, when they are sober, if you talk to them, they will say, yes, yes, it's all very bad habit, and, it will lead to a lot of health problems and things like that and all. But they will not stop it. Why? Because when that evening comes or whatever time they have got for this addiction, mind will automatically say, okay, you go ahead, Baba. Let all other people, let your intellect also tell anything. You don't care for you go ahead, but do what you want to do. Thus, it's a very, very strong instrument. And I am not able to convince and persuade the mind. This is all Arjuna's, we are putting words into Arjuna's mouth because they only want small sloka, but then we have to draw all these out of that sloka. In fact, Madhusudana Saraswati defines the balavat of the mind as vicharena abhijetum na shaktum. Even by arguing with the mind and persuading, it doesn't listen. It is very strong. Even though intellectually you argue and command the mind to sit quiet and say that by worrying about the future is not going to change. Suppose you have to catch a flight or a train and you are driving to the airport or the railway station, whatever it is. But you are stuck in traffic. Now you are restless and standing in the traffic signal. What do you do? Most people in India especially, they will keep on honking. Or doing something, shouting. But by all their actions, the traffic signal would not turn into green immediately. It will turn green only in its own time. So your honking is not going to change the signal quickly. So even if the intellect tells the mind, a mind worrying is useless, worry will not change the situation, the mind will not obey. So the mind becomes so powerful to conquer even the intellect. In fact, in Kathopanishad, Ratha Kalpana is presented. There, what the mantra says is, in the normal course, the mind is compared to the reins of horses in a chariot. And the intellect is compared to the driver or the charioteer who controls the reins. So that indicates that the mind is always under the control of the intellect, or should be under the control of intellect, rather. That would be a better way of putting it. So intellect is more powerful than the mind as it holds the reins, which is the mind. Intellect can command the mind. But you will find that if the mind is used to certain forms of thinking, mind is so powerful that even the intellect reasons with the mind, irrespective of any amount of consoling and telling the mind not to worry. the mind will worry. And that will be an indication. Deep inside the stomach, there will be churning, no? Like a turbulent ocean. Hook, 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 it will do. In fact, when you go for an examination, typically anxiety, that will happen. The churning, stomach churning will happen. Why? Because the mind is agitated, it is worried. Whether I will get all the questions which I know, or there will be questions which I don't know. So what to do? So similarly, I tell you, you are Brahman. You are Nitya Mukta, Buddha Swabhava. Intellect accepts it, but the mind refuses. And the churning in the stomach continues. What? I have to give up my identity as so and so and so. I am such a high position I am holding. All ego. In fact, one commentator says, Sahasra Vasana Bihi. Because he said that worrying is also a Vasana. And Swami Paramatmananda, gives a good example. Like initially, normally for many people, this happens after they are married. The wife is very good at making very lovely coffee in the morning. So initially, when I choose to drink coffee, it is my intellectual decision. I'll get up in the morning, then I need to be sort of, get out of the bed with a spring and a coffee, a good cup of coffee. Caffeine in that coffee will help me do that. So this is the intellectual decision. And therefore I decide to drink coffee in the morning. In fact, coffee drinking is the first thing I do in the morning, even before I brush my teeth. So this has become a habit. Now suppose one day I do not get the morning coffee. If one day the mind is disturbed, oh, I'm feeling very odd. But I don't pay much attention to it because it's okay, only one day, we'll manage. Then what happens? I continue with this habit for a few months and my body and my mind get used to it. A vasana develops. Thereafter, if you decide, I should stop this habit and not drink this morning coffee, the withdrawal symptoms are felt at the body level also. Smoking, drinking, all these things, these addictions, anything you do continuously, a vasana develops. Very difficult to get rid of that vasana unless you counter it with another vasana development. Because I have created a habit which has now become a vasana. Now, even though intellectually I do not want them to happen, it is no more under my control. Similarly, certain ways of thinking initially we generate. Thereafter, what happens? The mind knows how to go into that groove, And even when though you decide to stop, mind will heckle at you and it will continue to do whatever it wants to do. And this is the particular situation, or you can call it a split personality. This is every Vedantin who comes to Vedanta has to go through this. Intellect tells nothing to worry, mind just keeps on worrying. And this is called orientation, vasana. Nididhyasanam is meant only for getting rid of these vasanas, the past orientations. Because the only solution is we have to reorient the mind. This reorientation and conquering the withdrawal symptoms is a painful affair. But we have to go through, we have no choice. As I said, like a person smoking and drinking, even though the intellect has decided he has to go through the full process, he will encounter a lot of problems, even depression he will encounter. And all this could last, this recovery period or reorientation period can last for weeks or even months together. In fact, according to Vedanta, we are all drunkards. Of course, here the drinking relates to the emotional orientation, worrying, fearing. These are all habits, and no habit can be broken suddenly. It requires a lot of initiative, lot of planning, lot of time. Just as a sick person has to be sometimes admitted into a hospital. Here, that hospital is called meditation. And then he has to face all the problem and eventually get rid of them. Similarly, getting out of fear complex, getting out of depression, all these things will take time. And this process in Shastra is called Vasana Kshaya and Nididhyasanam or meditation. Vedantic meditation is the only solution. Until that comes, mind remains firm in its groove of reacting, thinking, worrying, etc. Here you should recall the example I gave of that Stoic philosopher. When he was told you have lost all your property, all your family, etc., he asked, what? And that what was the Vasana reaction. And then suddenly he remembers, oh, I am a Vedanta student. I attend Gita classes regularly. He remembers the wisdom of Krishna. So after a minute or two, he says, so what? That what to so what, the time and distance has to become lesser and lesser and lesser. And that is directly proportional to Vasana Kshaya. It requires constant practice and also patience. There is no other way. Therefore, it is Bhagawad. It conquers my wisdom, my intellect. And also it is Dridam. Dridam means it is so firm in its own field of worrying and anxiety. If the mind is hovering around a particular topic, a particular person, or a particular incident, maybe that person has insulted and the mind is upset. But I try to take the mind away from that field, tell the mind not to think about it. He might have insulted you, but you should practice forgive and forget. All that, philosophical things I tell the mind. Or even I'll give a concession. Okay, mind, now you are sitting in the class, right? In Gita class. You can think about that incident later after the class. Howsoever, how much ever I try to pull the mind away from it, mind is stuck to that incident like the flies get stuck to the jackfruit or sugarcane juice. You can't do anything with that. Therefore, its hold on external world, anatma, is very, very strong. So the word balavat means independently it is strong. Dridam means its hold on a particular field is firm. So unless I pull my mind from anatma, how can I channelize the mind to atma? Of course, if Bhagavan had given us two minds, it would still be possible. We can dedicate one mind for anatma, another for atma. But unfortunately, Bhagavan has given us only one mind. And if that mind is stuck in anatma, I cannot channelize it toward the atma because it can do only one job at a time. Therefore, an extrovert mind cannot practice atma dhyanam. And because of these four powerful qualifications of the mind, Arjuna says, Hey Krishna, aham manye, I consider sudushkaram, it being extremely difficult, almost bordering on the impossible. What is difficult? Tasya nigraham. Nigraham means discipline the mind, managing the mind. I consider that to be the most difficult thing. And that is why, they say in the scriptures, Mano Jaya is the biggest victory in life. You may win over every other thing, you may conquer everything else. But if you have not managed your mind, if you have not conquered your mind, nothing else is real success. Once the mind is under your control, that is the real success of life. In fact, there is a beautiful prayer song in Hindi. I don't know, some of you might have heard it. I think this song came in the old film, Goody picture. That's my vague memory. I'm not sure. Not relevant also where it came. हमको मन की शक्ति देना, मन विजय करें, दूसरों की जय से पहले खुद की जय करें. खुद की जय, win over your mind. That is the most important thing in life. If you are able to do that, then your 50% meditation job is over. Mind will be under your obedience. It will be your obedient servant. You tell the mind, sit for meditation, do nididhyasanam. It will obey. Tell the mind, don't allow other thoughts to come in. It will obey. So Arjuna says, Tasya nigraham sudushkaram. I find weaning the mind from its own habitual responses to be extremely difficult. Dushkaram means difficult. Sudushkaram means extremely difficult. Like what? He says, Vayoho iva. Like trying to control the wind. Can you stop the wind? You cannot stop the wind. The wind is not a concrete object that you can put some, boulders and all and stop the flow of the wind. Similarly, the mind is a subtle, sensitive, powerful instrument. You cannot just order the mind and say, stop worrying. It will just smile at you and continue to do what it is doing. Therefore, Arjuna says, Hey Krishna, I find it extremely difficult. I am not able to restrain my mind with my willpower. I do not think that success is that easy. And since I am not able to manage myself, I would require probably a management consultant, a mind management consultant. Therefore, hey Krishna, you have to help me. He has already said in the second chapter, Shishyasteham Shadimam Twam Prapannam, I have surrendered to you. Hey Krishna, help me. Take me out of these habitual, emotional, unhealthy responses and tell me how to do that. See? Arjuna also has got such a faith in Guru that he knows Krishna will help him out. Because Arjuna is a serious student. He wants to do it, but he finds, these are obstacles he is facing rather. So now Krishna says, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Asamshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnirgraham Chalam Mano Durnirgraham Chalam. Second part of the mantra, suddenly forget.
Abhyasanena, abhyasen,
Abhyasena cha अभ्यासेन च
ye,
वैराग्येन
अभ्यासेन तु कौन्तेय वैराग्येन तु
vairagyena cha grihyaye.
च गृह्यते. Sometimes, when you try to memorize the slokas, they go for a toss. Sometimes, when the block comes. So, anyhow, we will see the Anvaya. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, He Mahabaho, Asamshayam Manah Chalam Durnirgraham, He Kaunteya, Tu Grihyate Vairagyena Abhyasena Cha. So Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Lord answered, He Mahabaho, O Arjuna, Asamshayam, undoubtedly, Manachalam, the mind is fickle, Durnirgraham, and difficult to restrain. He Kaunteya, O Arjuna, son of Kunti, Tu Grihyate, however it can be restrained. Vairagyena, through detachment, cha abhyasena, and practice. So the Lord answered, O Arjuna, undoubtedly the mind is fickle and difficult to restrain. However, it can be restrained through detachment and practice. So now in this 35th sloka, Krishna is presenting the remedy or the method. In fact, 37, 38, 39, three slokas. He deals with Vikshepa Parihara, the remedy or Parihara for the problem of Vikshepa. So the first thing Krishna points out as any intelligent teacher is that, hey Arjuna, don't get vexed because this is not the problem. This is not your unique problem. It is the problem of the entire humankind. Vikshepa or extrovertedness of the mind is not a problem of a particular human being. It is a universal problem. And because of it is a universal problem, Shastra itself discusses the problem. If it was the individual problem, Shastra may not probably look at it. But because it is a universal problem, Shastra discusses that. And that itself gives us a great relief. Once we know that I am not the only one having this problem, others are also having the same problem, it brings a big relief. Earlier we have seen an example, if you remember, if there is no power in our house, what is the first thing we do? We will go and see whether the neighbor has got power or not. If the neighbor also has no power, then we are relieved. Okay, this is not my unique problem. It is a universal problem. Everybody in the colony doesn't have power. Great relief. Everybody is equally suffering. Therefore, the situation remaining the same, once you know that there are other people in the same boat, there is a relief. So what is the process? First, we have to acknowledge the problem. Only if we acknowledge there is a problem, then we will know or at least try to find out how to handle it. Once you accept the problem, the remedy will come. God will give the solution. And that is what they do in this institution called Alcoholic Anonymous, which helps people with de-addiction, etc. So as you go there, for counseling, etc., the first thing they say to people is accept that you have a problem. Because many people who have addicted, they refuse to even accept. They live in total denial that they have got a problem. So the first thing is accept that I have a problem and I am not able to get out of it. And if you accept and surrender, help will come from other outer source. That outer source, whatever name by which you call it, the God or power or anything, help will come. Similarly, here also, if you accept the problem, at least you won't have the sense of guilt. Therefore, Krishna first consoles Arjuna. He says, Hey Mahabaho, hey Arjuna. Of course, here it also looks like Krishna is trying to tease Arjuna by saying, Hey Mahabaho. Yeah, Mahabaho means what? He says, Hey Arjuna, you are so powerful enough to conquer all the external enemies, but you do not have inner strength to handle your own mind. But as though teasing, rather, I wouldn't say, because a guru will never do that. But he is indirectly telling Arjuna, Arjuna, you can do it. You have the strength. You have conquered so many people. You can conquer your mind also. That's a positive way of a guru will. So Mahabaho, instead of taking it in a negative way, we can take it in a positive way and say, here Krishna, by calling Mahabaho, is reminding Arjuna of his great power, his strength. And he's saying all that you need to do is develop that inner strength to conquer your mind. So, He Mahabaho, Asamshayam, no doubt about it. What you say is definitely true. When you say Manaha Durnirgraham Chalam, mind is highly fickle, wayward, and outgoing. It is Durnirgraham, not easily manageable. That is a fact. You have to accept that. That's all. But what is the consolation? Consolation is, it is difficult to handle, no doubt, but it is not impossible to handle. There's a big difference. Difficult to handle, you may have to put in a lot more efforts. But if it is impossible, any amount of efforts will not work. So therefore, he is highlighting the fact that it is difficult to handle, but not impossible to handle. That means you can handle your mind if you are willing to adopt proper methods, which are called upaya. Mano nigraha upaya. Strategy for mental discipline. And what are the upayas or methods? There are two methods, which is said in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra also. There it is said, Abhyasa Vairagyabhyam Tat Siddhi. So you should adopt the same strategy. This strategy has got two parts. Abhyasa, Abhyasena means proper practice. We will deal with that later in more detail. So this is the first method. Abhyasa is the first part. Vairagyam is the second part. Now what is Abhyasa? we should first remember one basic principle about the behavior of the mind. That's very important to remember that. Where many times we have this defeatist attitude. No, it can't be done, it can't be done. We will not even reflect into our past to see if we have done it in the past or not, and it is possible for us to do. So there is one trait of the mind which we should recall, which is a very basic principle. Now, what is that? When the mind has got interest in something, then it will always dwell upon that thing without distraction. Isn't it true? This is the basic principle. For example, if you love reading novels, any particular novel, you say, whose name? A long time I have not read any novels. But that Robin Cook, one of the good writers, I used to read his novels. Suppose you love reading Robin Cook novels. You will find that when you start reading, you get so engrossed that you forget everything else. You are so absorbed that you don't feel like putting the book down. With book in your hands, it is as if you are in a nirvikalpaka samadhi while reading. There is no hunger, no thirst. You don't know anything which is going on. So much absorbed, engrossed you are because you love the story. Your mind is interested in that. Another example, suppose if someone loves to watch cricket or a football match. Have you seen those people's behavior when they sit before the TV to see these matches, say, final match or something like that? What happens to that person's concentration? A bowler has taken 2 wickets in an over. Now this is the last ball. And this is your favorite team bowling. Last ball. What will be your level of concentration? If somebody is even making a small sound, you will say shh, shh, as if you are saying should, as if you silence the people around you, something different is going to happen. That much focus, that much concentration on the every movement of the match you can have, and that too effortlessly. During that time, there is no other thought in the mind. Such people, if you ask them any question at that time, either they will not answer or they will shout at you. They will shoo away anything that disturbs their concentration. There is no chanchalatvam of the mind at that time. Therefore, even though mind has got all those kind of chanchalatvam, pramati, balavadridam, etc., mind has also got the concentration power, a very, very big, solid power. Nobody can say that their mind is always restless and wandering. And everyone can invoke this concentration power. The only question is in what? For someone, it may be a movie. For another one, a game or a sport. For a third one, it may be reading a book. Fourth one, maybe something else. Therefore, if I develop interest in a particular field, the mind will enjoy dwelling in that in spite of any distractions. And how do you develop interest in any particular field? By knowing its value, its greatness, its superiority, and how it is wonderful for me. Therefore, concentration requires interest. Interest requires love. Love requires developing a value for that. And how do you develop a value? Only by trying to understand its superiority. And this process is called Viveka Abhyasa. See the superiority of something by repeatedly reading about it, talking about it, sharing it. When you do that, you develop a value for that. That's why they say always speak the truth. Always speak the truth. The more you focus on that value, speaking truth itself becomes very valuable. Even the worst of circumstances, you will not speak untruth. And in the context of Vedanta, this development of value is called Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka. So by developing healthy habits, by knowing the greatness of what you call dharma, by knowing the greatness of moksha, I naturally will develop an interest in dharma and moksha. And that is called Viveka Abhyasa. And it is all about studying of scriptures. Scriptural study initially talks about the superiority of God and how the only worthwhile thing in life is depending upon God, and how dependence on any other unpredictable factors in life is going to be risky. The more I understand that dependence on unpredictable fluctuating factors is unintelligent living, and dependence on the predictable and infinite God alone is worthy in life, the more peace I will get. The more peace I get, the more value I will develop from that. If you don't understand that, the cosmic powers you will get a few kicks from the cosmic powers to understand that. Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmana, Upanishad says. So first is dependence on God, taking away your dependence on all this temporary, impermanent anatma, depending on, then shift your dependence on God. And later we have to understand that dependence on God ultimately is what? Dependence on myself. Because God is not some entity outside. The Lord is not different from me, not away from myself. And therefore what happens? Jagat dependence will get converted into Ishvara dependence. And Ishvara dependence we have to convert into self-dependence. And self-dependence is what? Independence. And that independence is moksha. And therefore, the scriptures talk about our journey from world dependence to God dependence to self-dependence to independence and to moksha. This is the entire scheme of the Vedas. Right from Karma Kanda up to the end of Jnana Kanda, this is the scheme of Vedas. We have to understand that. Once we understand that, appreciate the scheme, we will certainly develop a value for that. Now, there could be a Purva Pakshi. Someone may ask, what is wrong if I continue in world dependence? We'll ask, I am quite happy now. I am depending on the world for everything. My spouse, my children, etc. Everybody is there. I am depending on them. I'm happy. So why should I not? What is wrong with that? Now, our answer is that's fine. I mean, if you are feeling happy, no problem. But you should know that there is a risk in world independence because the world is highly fluctuating, fleeting, perishable. And depending upon a fluctuating thing is a risky thing. Whenever we face sorrow in our life, we must, instead of getting emotional, reflect on the cause of sorrow. And if you do that, we will invariably find that the sorrow has always been because I have been depending upon something on which I should not have depended. It's a very, very, I would call it, a very serious point everyone has to reflect on. Why do we get sorrow in our life? That is because throughout our life, we are depending on things which are undependable. And when the undependable becomes really undependable, even though initially it looked like dependable, but it becomes undependable, what we are left with is sorrow only. Take the case of children. You beget children, you give them good values and things like that and all, in the hope that during your old age, you can depend upon them. But what happens? They get a job somewhere in US, Australia, wherever it is. Go away. You get them married thinking that at least his spouse will show some sympathy and help us. Doesn't happen. There's so many old couples in India. In fact, all this development of the senior citizens' homes in Coimbatore is because Puja Swamiji realized this and he wanted people to understand that, in fact, more than understand, provide a solution. At least from one undependable dependence, move over to another dependable, at least temporarily dependable dependence. What are the needs of your old age? See, women who have been cooking for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, they are unable to even lift a small, vessel at home. They are also growing old. They are also, becoming weak. And the husband and wife, they are just, I mean, so many families we can see that. Anyhow, I'm thinking away. So, as I was saying, the sorrow, if we actually analyze the cause of our sorrow, we will invariably find that the sorrow has always been because of depending upon something on which I should not have depended. And thinking in these lines, then we come to these questions. What is Nityam? What is Anityam? What is ever secure? What is never secure? What is strong? What is weak? So this Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka is a very, very important lesson which Shastram alone teaches. And with the help of Shastram, when I dwell upon this topic, I will be able to make meaningful changes to my lifestyle. Learn about the habit of more and more God dependence. And later on, as Krishna says in the 10th chapter, Madchitta Madgata Pranaha Bodhayantah Parasparam Katayantascha Mam Nityam Tushyanti Cha Ramanti Cha. We'll see this sloka in detail when we come to the 10th chapter. So God dependence is a healthy habit which we can develop. And religious life is nothing but developing the healthy and good habit of God dependence. And it works. I can tell you it works. What is God dependence? Depending upon the cosmic powers, which are more dependent, which are, what I would say, dependable than all the other anatma dependence. And when I get used to this healthy habit, it will naturally replace unhealthy habit. So that's why they say, if you want to de-addict yourself, form some good addiction. Not another wrong addiction. Because some people, they want to give up smoking, they will take to chewing path. Because they literally take, okay, replace it with another addiction. That becomes an addiction rather. Then they will do something else to get rid of that. That is not what is meant by good addiction you follow. Coming to regularly Gita class, taking the notes, watching the videos, not only of this class, but other videos also. Always be in the thought of Vedanta. They're all good addictions. There may be addiction, but the good addiction, healthy addiction. In Shastra, it is called Shubha Vasana. So develop Shubha Vasana, develop healthy habits, and you will find that unknowingly, effortlessly, you grow out of it. The Shubha Vasana replaces Ashubha Vasana or Durvasana. It happens. And this inculcation of the healthy habit is Viveka Abhyasa. And because of this development of healthy habit, the natural consequence is giving up unhealthy habit. What is the unhealthy habit we are focusing on? Depending upon perishable, undependable is an unhealthy habit. Depending on permanent thing is a healthy habit. Depending upon impermanent thing is an unhealthy habit. And Swami Paramathananji again in this context gives a nice example. Suppose you have a nice chair which is made of cardboard. Nicely designed, very ornamental, colorful papers are struck and all made very attractive. But you know that it is made of cardboard. Now what you can do with such a chair? You can probably keep it in your, some nicely decorated place. You can keep it as a decoration item in your living room. You can do everything else except one thing. You cannot sit on the chair. If you do that, I need not tell you what will happen. So in which chair should I say it? A good chair made of wood or steel, which will hold my weight. Similarly, depending upon undependable, perishable things is like trying to sit on the cardboard chair. And depending upon the dependable God is like sitting in a safe and steady wooden or steel chair. Here, of course, the word dependence or the word sitting means emotional dependence. We are talking about emotional dependence. And giving up that emotional dependence, that weakness is called vairagyam. So sitting on a strong chair is viveka, not sitting on a weak chair is vairagyam. And if the mind gets used to that, mind is addicted to that, if I have developed this vairagyam as a habit, in meditation also, I will love to dwell upon the same topic which I have developed a habit on. And therefore Krishna says, Abhyasena and Vairagyena. We'll continue in the next class. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari
Hari Om. Namaskaram, Guruji. Thank you very much.
you. Hari Om.
Namaskaram.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you very much.
Namaste. Thank you. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you, Guruji. Namaste. It is very nice. Thank you, Hari Om.
Any questions or observations, comments?
Acceptance. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
Accept and work towards it.
Yeah. Work towards it. Yeah. It's not difficult. One has to bring one's mind to that. It will happen. These are all the practical tips. I mean, what else? There's a magic wand you cannot make to become a Vedanta, to become a get moksha, isn't it? You have to work towards that and it will happen. Good.
This is basic life principles.
Basic
Every
Gita
practice.
is a manual for leading a good, happy, peaceful life.
Yes, practice makes man perfect, and this is what makes it perfect everywhere.
Perfect life. But then people don't understand that we have got such a beautiful manual. It is typical of our thing. Well, we will have all these gadgets, the TV and things like that. They come with a manual, right? And if something goes wrong, we will never go to the manual. We will first try to fix it ourselves and then spoil the whole thing rather. Then we will see the manual and then that will say, don't do this, don't do that, and you should go to the call of the service provider and things like that. And that's what we do with our life also. Without first referring to what the right thing is to be done under any circumstance, we try to fix it ourselves and then get into more trouble. That's what happens. Anyhow, Krishna is there with us. He's teaching us good things. Krishna and the Guru Parampara, I should say. That's good. Good. So there are no more questions. Can I close the session?
Thank you, Guruji. Hari Om. Thank you so much.
The change in the day of the class, there will be more people who will be missing it because they have got other prior commitments, which is okay. I mean, so some questions may be less going forward. Okay, Hari Om. Thank you very much.
Hari Om.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guruji. Hari Om.